The world had gone to hell faster than anyone could have imagined. One minute, folks were grabbing their morning coffee, scrolling through their phones, and complaining about traffic. The next, they were running for their lives from the dead that refused to stay dead. It had been a year since the outbreak started, and the cities were nothing but burned-out ruins filled with the stench of rotten ash. The air buzzed with flies and fear, and the nights were haunted by the low, bone-chilling moans of the undead. But even in that nightmare, some people still fought to live, fought to remember what being human meant. Tyler Brooks was one of them. Once a firefighter in Houston, now a survivor with a shotgun slung across his back and a scar running down his cheek like a crooked lightning bolt. He didn't talk much these days, not since he lost his wife and kid when the infection first hit. But when he did speak, people listened. Tyler was the kind of guy who didn't waste words, he made them count. That morning, the sun rose behind the wreckage of an old radio tower, and the survivors' camp started to stir. Tyler walked past the makeshift tents, boots crunching over broken glass and gravel. The camp was small, only 6 people, but they'd made it work for 3 months now, which was practically a miracle in a world where trust got you killed faster than a bite. "Morning, boss," called out Luke Daniels, a 20-something mechanic with a baseball cap turned backward and grease always smudged across his face. Generators still kicking, but the fuel's running low. "We'll need a run soon." Tyler grunted, rubbing his jaw. "We'll check the old gas station on Route 9 after breakfast. Stay sharp. Last time we went out there, we almost didn't make it back." Luke nodded, his usual grin fading. Everyone remembered that day, the ambush, the screaming, the blood. They'd lost Jimmy that day, and his body was still somewhere out there, lost among the walking corpses. Meanwhile, inside a half-collapsed diner they used as a kitchen, Emma Blake was heating up a can of beans over a small camp stove. Emma was tough as nails, a former nurse with a sharp tongue and the kind of glare that could stop a fight before it started. She'd saved every one of their lives at least once. When Tyler walked in, she handed him a dented cup of instant coffee. "Looks like you didn't sleep again," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Didn't need to," Tyler replied. "Somebody's gotta keep watch." "Yeah, well, you keep running on fumes like that, and you'll end up one of them," she muttered, nodding toward the boarded-up window where faint moans drifted from outside. Before Tyler could answer, a loud crash echoed from beyond the camp's perimeter fence. Everyone froze. Luke dropped his wrench, and the clatter sounded like a gunshot in the silence. "Get ready!" Tyler barked, grabbing his shotgun. The group scrambled, Emma snatched her pistol, Luke grabbed a crowbar, and Old Man Ray, the ex-trucker who'd seen too much, swung up his double barrel. The noise came again, something heavy slamming into the metal fence. Then came the sound they all dreaded, a deep, guttural growl followed by that slow, wet shuffling of feet. "Zeds," Ray whispered, his eyes narrowing. The group moved into position, hearts pounding. Tyler peeked through a gap in the fence. A dozen of them, gray-skinned, drooling, their eyes clouded with hunger. But there was something else, someone else, moving behind them. A figure wearing a torn leather jacket and carrying a gun? "Wait," Tyler hissed. "That's not one of them." The figure stepped closer, firing a shot into a zombie's skull with practiced precision. The dead dropped instantly, and the rest turned toward the noise. The stranger kept moving, taking them out one by one until the only sounds left were gunfire and silence. When the last body hit the ground, the stranger lowered his weapon and raised his hands. "Don't shoot. I'm human." Tyler motioned for everyone to hold. Slowly, he opened the gate and stepped out, gun still ready. The stranger looked exhausted, mud-caked boots, blood-stained clothes, and eyes that screamed he'd seen too much. "Name's Jack," he said, panting. "Been tracking this herd since yesterday. You folks got a place to crash?" Tyler studied him for a long moment. "Maybe. Depends if you're trouble." Jack smirked. "Aren't we all?" The tension hung thick for a moment before Tyler finally lowered his weapon. "Come on in. But any funny business, and you're out." Jack nodded, stepping through the gate as the others watched. Emma frowned but didn't say anything. Trust was a luxury they couldn't afford, but maybe, just maybe, this stranger was the piece they needed to survive what was coming next. Because deep down, Tyler could feel it, the dead weren't the only danger left in this world. Something worse was coming, and the arrival of Jack might have just set it in motion. The next few days after Jack showed up were uneasy ones. The camp wasn't exactly the kind of place that welcomed strangers with open arms. Everyone was still side-eyeing him, especially Emma. She didn't like how quiet he was, or how his eyes kept scanning the horizon like he expected trouble to follow. Tyler didn't blame her. In this new world, trust wasn't just rare, it was dangerous. But something about Jack made Tyler hesitate before pushing him away. The guy had combat training written all over him, from the way he held his gun to how he moved in silence. That evening, the group gathered around a flickering lantern in what used to be the diner's booth area. The cracked red leather seats were now patched with duct tape, and the jukebox in the corner was covered in dust and bullet holes. Luke was hunched over a map, tracing routes with a marker. "There's a gas station here," he said, pointing. "And maybe another stash house out west, near the old mill. Could be worth checking. Could be full of Zeds, too," Ray grunted, puffing on an unlit cigar just for the smell. "Last time we hit one of those, half of us almost got chewed." Jack leaned in, tapping the map with a finger. "That mill, if it's the one I think it is, used to be a military drop zone before the world went sideways. Ammo, rations, maybe even meds." Everyone turned toward him. Emma folded her arms. "How would you know that?" Jack met her glare without flinching. "Because I was stationed there. U.S. Army, Recon Unit. Before the collapse." A long silence followed. Tyler's eyes narrowed. "You military?" "Was," Jack said simply. "Not much of an army left now, huh?" Luke leaned back, eyes wide. "Man, if that's true, we might actually have a shot at living past winter." Emma still wasn't buying it. "Or we're leading a liar straight into our only safe haven." Tyler raised a hand, cutting her off. "Enough. We'll check it out tomorrow. But if Jack's wrong, he's on his own." That night, the camp went quiet early. The wind howled through broken windows, carrying the distant cries of the undead. Tyler stayed on watch, sitting by the fire with his shotgun across his lap. The flames reflected in his tired eyes as he watched Jack by the fence, standing motionless, looking out into the darkness. "You ever sleep?" Tyler asked, walking over. Jack smirked faintly. "Used to. Harder these days." "Yeah," Tyler said, staring into the black fields beyond the fence. "Feels like every time I close my eyes, I see the ones I couldn't save." Jack didn't say anything at first. Then quietly, he murmured, "Same." The two men stood there in silence. Somewhere in the distance, a lone zombie groaned, dragging its broken leg through the dirt. The night stretched on forever, but neither of them moved. For the first time in months, Tyler didn't feel completely alone. The next morning, the group geared up for the supply run. The sun was barely up when they set out, Tyler leading, Jack close behind, and Luke driving the old pickup truck they'd managed to keep running with duct tape and prayer. Emma and Ray rode in the back, keeping watch. The road ahead was cracked and overgrown, littered with rusted cars and bones. "Man," Luke muttered, steering around a fallen sign, "remember when rush hour was our biggest problem?" "Yeah," Ray said dryly. "Now the only thing rushing is the dead." As they neared the outskirts of town, the silence became heavier. Every sound, a crow's caw, a breeze through the grass, felt like a warning. They parked a few hundred feet from the mill and approached on foot. The place looked deserted, massive metal silos standing like giants over the ruins. The gates were half open, and a faint smell of gunpowder hung in the air. Jack crouched and studied the dirt. Tracks. Not zombies, boots. Fresh. Emma's voice was low. So, people? Yeah, Tyler said grimly. And if they're still here, they won't like visitors. They moved slowly, weapons raised, stepping over debris and bullet casings. A crow flapped away from the roof, its cry echoing through the hollow mill. Inside, sunlight streamed through holes in the ceiling, catching on dust and spiderwebs. Then they heard it, a cough. Human. Close. Tyler signaled the group to freeze. They crept forward, rounding a stack of crates. There, behind a toppled table, was a young woman, barely 20, clutching a revolver too big for her shaking hands. Her clothes were torn, and her face was smeared with grime. "Stay back," she cried. "I ain't one of them." Jack slowly lowered his gun and held up a hand. "Easy. We're not here to hurt you." Her eyes darted between them. "You're not with those freaks?" "What freaks?" Emma asked. The girl swallowed hard. "The ones who call themselves the Reapers. They took over this place last week. Kill anyone they see. They said they were cleansing the world." Luke cursed under his breath. Tyler's jaw clenched. "How many?" "Dozen, maybe more. They'll be back soon. You gotta go." Tyler exchanged a look with Jack. This changed everything. The dead were bad enough, but the living? The living were worse. Jack chambered around, his eyes cold. "Then we're not leaving," he said quietly. "We're taking this place back." Tyler nodded slowly. "We fight smart, we fight quiet." He glanced at Emma. "You still think he's trouble?" She met Jack's gaze, then looked away. "Yeah," she said softly. "But maybe he's the kind of trouble we need." The mill loomed ahead like a fortress carved from rust and decay. Tyler, Jack, and the others crouched behind piles of rubble, trying to keep their breathing quiet. The sun was climbing higher, casting long shadows that danced like ghosts across the cracked concrete. The air smelled of old metal and rot, and every step they took seemed to echo too loudly. "All right, here's the plan," Tyler whispered, spreading his hands over the map once more. "We split into 2 teams. Jack and I hit the front, Emma, Luke, and Ray cover the back exit. We need to flush him out without getting bogged down. No hero moves, no mistakes." Jack nodded, checking his ammo. "Got it. Fast and quiet. Just how I like it." Emma rolled her eyes. "Fast and quiet? That's rich coming from a guy who brought half the army with him in one shot yesterday." Jack smirked, but didn't reply. Tyler just shook his head. "Focus. Let's move." The group slithered forward, sticking low behind overturned crates and twisted metal beams. Inside the mill, the shadows shifted in eerie patterns. They could hear muffled voices, men and women, laughing and cursing in equal measure, totally unaware of the danger creeping closer. "Reapers," the young woman whispered from behind a crate. "They're nasty. Don't underestimate them. They kill quick, and they don't leave survivors." Tyler kept his eyes on the doorway. "Thanks for the pep talk. Now stay down, and try not to scream." Jack led the way, moving like a shadow himself. He tossed a small rock toward a stack of barrels, and the sound echoed just enough to draw a few reapers out of their hiding spots. The first 2 stepped into the open, and Jack's gun barked twice. Both dropped instantly, heads caved in, blood staining the concrete floor. Tyler stepped up behind him, shotgun ready, feeling that familiar surge of adrenaline. From the back, Emma and Luke worked efficiently, forcing 2 reapers to the floor while Ray covered the perimeter. The group moved with precision, every second counting. But then the mill's metal doors groaned, the sound deafening in the emptiness. "Shit," Tyler muttered. "They know we're here." A dozen more Reapers appeared, armed and ruthless. The fight erupted suddenly. Shots rang out, the smell of gunpowder mixed with sweat and blood. The young woman screamed, ducking behind a steel column as a Reaper charged her. Emma dove, swinging a crowbar with brutal force, knocking him into a pile of crates. The man slumped, twitching, but not dead yet. Tyler charged forward, taking down another attacker with his shotgun, the recoil rattling his shoulder. Jack moved like a predator, firing with calculated precision, ducking behind debris, taking down attackers before they could react. "Cover me," he shouted as he dove toward a small stash room that probably held supplies they desperately needed. Luke yanked a barrel in front of himself, firing erratically but hitting one of the advancing Reapers square in the chest. "Get off me, freak," he yelled, adrenaline pumping so hard he barely felt the fear twisting in his stomach. Ray, despite his age, fought like a wild animal. His double barrel cracked twice in quick succession, felling 2 more attackers. His gruff voice carried over the chaos, "Tyler, we gotta clear the upper floor." The survivors regrouped, moving upstairs where the fight continued. The Reapers were better trained than Tyler expected, clearly not just street thugs. But they weren't invincible. Tyler's team systematically cleared rooms, Jack leading the charge, Tyler covering him, Emma and Luke following like shadows, and Ray making sure no one circled back behind them. Then came the worst moment, the roof creaked dangerously under a few attackers. One of the floorboards gave way, sending a Reaper crashing through the ceiling above Tyler. He rolled, barely avoiding the falling body, but the impact sent splinters everywhere. The smell of blood mixed with dust, making it hard to breathe. Jack kicked open a steel door and found the stash, a small room full of canned food, bottles of water, and a few crates of ammo. "Jackpot," he whispered, grinning despite the chaos. Emma ran in behind him. "Don't celebrate yet. They're still alive and coming back. We need a way out." Tyler peeked through a cracked window. Smoke from a fire outside started to rise, the chaos spreading. "We're cutting through the west exit," he said. "Everyone with me." The survivors moved fast, hearts hammering, bodies bruised but alive. The young woman stayed close, finally showing some fight herself, swinging her revolver and helping cover the rear. Outside, the sunlight hit them like a slap, illuminating the destruction. The mill was now a battlefield, a testament to how dangerous the living could be. They barely made it to the pickup truck, tires screeching as Luke floored it down the cracked road. Behind them, the mill smoldered, Reapers screaming and firing shots that bounced harmlessly off the truck's metal sides. Tyler looked back, chest heaving, realizing that surviving zombies was one thing, but surviving the humans who'd adapted to this hell, that was a whole different fight. Jack leaned back, wiping blood off his face. "We're not out of the woods yet," he said, voice grim but steady. Tyler nodded, tightening his grip on the shotgun. "Nope. But for today, we survived." The young woman looked at them with awe. You actually did it." Emma gave a half-smile. "Yeah, kid. But this is just the beginning." Tyler knew she was right. The world had changed, and every day was a battle. The dead weren't waiting, they never did. But worse, the living were learning, adapting, and growing more dangerous. And Tyler had a feeling the worst was still coming. The sun had barely cleared the horizon when Tyler's crew rolled into a deserted stretch of highway, the old pickup rattling with every pothole and crack. The mill was burning behind them, black smoke curling into the sky like a warning. For a moment, they let themselves breathe, hearts still hammering from the fight. But Tyler knew better, peace was temporary, and danger always had a way of catching up. Luke wiped sweat and grime from his face, muttering under his breath, "Man, I thought that place was toast. And somehow, we walked out alive. Guess miracles happen, sometimes." Emma didn't smile. She scanned the trees along the highway, eyes sharp. "Don't get comfortable. That smoke's gonna attract everything out here, zombies, Reapers, whoever else is dumb enough to show up." Jack leaned back, checking his ammo. "We'll need a place to hole up for a few days." Rest, patch up, and figure out our next move. Tyler nodded. There's an old hunting cabin about 10 miles north. Could be our best shot. Small, defensible, and hopefully no one's living there. The group drove in tense silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The young woman, who'd introduced herself as Molly, stayed huddled in the back, still shaken from the mill fight. She glanced at Tyler nervously. You guys, you always fight like that? Tyler shrugged, jaw tight. You do what you gotta do to survive. Ain't much else left. Molly looked away, chewing her lip. I lost my brother. Those reapers, they didn't leave him a chance. Her voice broke. Emma reached over, placing a hand on her shoulder. You made it out. That counts for something. We're not out of danger yet, but you're alive, kid. That's step one. The cabin came into view as the road curved through the forest. It was small, made of dark, weathered wood, with a stone chimney that hadn't smoked in years. The door hung on rusty hinges, but it looked like it could still hold. Tyler parked the truck nearby and gestured for everyone to disembark quietly. Keep your eyes peeled, he said. We don't know who, or what, might be waiting. Jack and Tyler checked the perimeter while Emma and Luke went inside to secure the cabin. Molly followed hesitantly, clutching her revolver like a lifeline. Inside, the cabin smelled of damp wood and mildew, but it was empty. For the first time in days, the group felt a sliver of relief. This'll work, Tyler muttered, surveying the interior. Needs some cleanup, but we can live here for a bit. Hours passed as they cleared out debris, patched windows with planks scavenged from outside, and set up makeshift beds. Tyler kept watch from a cracked window, scanning the tree line. Jack joined him, silent at first, before speaking. You ever wonder if it'll ever get better? Jack asked quietly. If the world will ever be normal again? Tyler didn't answer immediately. He leaned against the wall, gun resting across his lap. Normal? Don't think there's such a thing anymore. But we make do. We survive. That's all we've got. Jack nodded slowly, staring at the horizon. Yeah, survive. That's enough, I guess. Evening fell, and the cabin grew colder. Tyler lit a small fire in the stone hearth while everyone gathered around, exhaustion painted on their faces. Molly stayed close to Emma, silently listening as the older woman recounted the few moments of humanity she'd seen survive the apocalypse, neighbors helping neighbors, strangers sharing food, small sparks of hope that seemed almost impossible to find. Just as the group started to relax, a distant scream cut through the forest. It was human. Not a zombie. Tyler froze, hand tightening around his shotgun. Someone's hurt, he said, voice low. Or trapped. Could be trouble. Jack was already moving toward the door. We check it out. Quiet. Fast. Can't ignore it. Emma shook her head. Or it's a trap. Could be reapers trying to lure us out. Tyler considered both options. The survivors couldn't just sit in the cabin. The dead were bad enough, but the living, they were unpredictable, dangerous, and smarter than anyone wanted to admit. Grab your weapons, Tyler ordered. We're going out. The group stepped into the fading light, moving carefully through the trees. The scream repeated, more desperate, more terrified. Molly shivered beside Tyler, but he gave her a reassuring nod. Stick close, he murmured. We don't leave anyone behind. As they drew nearer, the screaming stopped. The forest fell eerily silent. Then, a figure stumbled into view, covered in mud and blood, clutching their arm. Another scream ripped through the air as several figures emerged from the shadows behind them. Zombies. And not just a few. At least 20, shambling and hungry. Shit! Luke yelled, firing a shot that echoed through the trees. Tyler raised his shotgun, heart pounding. Jack and Emma moved to cover the sides. Molly froze for a moment, terror gripping her, but Tyler grabbed her arm. Focus. You got this, he barked. The forest erupted in chaos. Gunfire, screaming, and the wet, choking sounds of the undead filled the air. They were trapped between the screaming survivor and the advancing horde. Every step could mean life or death. Tyler's mind raced. They had to survive this, again, but the question gnawed at him: how much longer could they keep running? How many more fights before the world swallowed them whole? And then he saw it, movement at the treeline, another group of living, watching them. Friend or foe? Tyler didn't have time to think. The fight for survival had just gotten even worse. The forest shook with chaos. Tyler's group was caught between the screaming survivor and the relentless horde of undead. Gunfire echoed, cracking through the trees, while zombies stumbled toward them with a terrifying, wet hunger. Tyler's heart pounded as he ducked behind a fallen log, firing his shotgun at the closest attackers. Every blast sent splinters into the air and limbs crumpling to the forest floor. "Keep moving!" Jack yelled, ducking under a branch and taking out two zombies with precise shots from his rifle. "Don't get surrounded." Luke fired wildly, adrenaline fueling his aim, while Emma swung her crowbar like a whip, knocking zombies back long enough to give Molly room to fire. The young woman's hands shook violently, but she landed a lucky shot that took down one of the creeping dead. Tyler spotted the survivor, the source of the screams, struggling against two zombies near a muddy creek. "We can't let them get eaten," he shouted, sprinting across open ground. Jack followed, moving like a shadow beside him. Tyler grabbed the survivor, dragging them behind a tree just as a zombie snapped at his shoulder. Pain shot through him, but he didn't let go. "Thanks," the survivor gasped. They were young, no older than Molly, face streaked with blood and fear. I thought I was done for." Tyler nodded, pulling his shotgun up. "Not today, kid. We get through this, we live." Meanwhile, Emma and Luke fought back to back, taking down zombies that pressed in from multiple angles. The horde was thickening, but Tyler could see a faint glimmer of hope. The creatures were slow, predictable. If they stayed organized, they had a chance. Then, the movement in the treeline caught Tyler's attention, the shadowy figures he'd glimpsed earlier. They weren't zombies. They were humans. Armed, watching, maybe waiting for the right moment. Tyler's stomach tightened. "Jack, cover me," he yelled, sprinting toward the trees. He had to know if they were friend or foe. Jack's rifle cracked. "Go," he shouted, taking out a zombie that lunged from behind. Tyler reached the edge of the clearing, heart hammering, and squinted through the shadows. The humans were barely visible, standing in a line. Guns raised, eyes wary, but not firing yet. "Stop right there," Tyler called, hands up. "We're not your enemy." One of them stepped forward, a tall man, face weathered and hard. "You just walked into our territory," he said. "We don't like strangers." Tyler raised an eyebrow. "We didn't want trouble. But there's zombies coming. We either work together or die out here." The man's eyes flicked to the horde. He glanced at his group, then back at Tyler. "All right, temporary truce. But any funny business, and we won't hesitate." Tyler nodded. "Deal." Back in the clearing, Jack, Emma, Luke, Ray, and Molly fought like hell to keep the horde at bay. Together with the new group, they managed to push the zombies back toward the creek. Tyler's heart raced with every shot and swing. For a moment, survival wasn't guaranteed, but cooperation was making it possible. When the last of the horde fell into the muddy water, groaning and flailing, Tyler and the others exhaled heavily. The forest was quiet again, but the tension lingered like smoke. The leader of the new group finally approached. "Name's Garrett," he said gruffly. "You got guts. Not many would survive a mess like that and come out swinging." Tyler shook his hand. "Tyler. And this is my crew." He nodded toward Jack, Emma, Luke, Ray, and Molly. "We've been running, fighting, surviving. Figured it's time to stop running for a bit." Garrett gave a small nod. "We'll give you a place to rest. Not much, but safer than the forest. You stick to our rules, you'll live. Molly glanced up at Tyler, eyes wide. Safe, really? Tyler forced a half-smile. Safe's a word we're gonna have to get used to. For now, it means no zombies eating us while we sleep. As night fell, the two groups merged, sharing a small encampment hidden in the trees. Fires flickered, casting long shadows across tired, bruised faces. Tyler couldn't stop thinking about how close they'd come to dying, not just from the dead, but from being alone. Being alone in this world was almost as dangerous as being surrounded. Jack sat beside Tyler, loading his rifle. You think they're gonna stick around? Tyler shrugged. Doesn't matter. We need every ally we can get. Just gotta make sure we're ready when the next fight comes. Emma leaned back, eyes scanning the tree line. You know, for the first time in forever, I kind of feel like we might actually survive this hell. Tyler looked at her, then at Molly, then at the group, and for a fleeting second, he allowed himself to believe it too. But deep down, he knew better. This world had a way of testing everyone, over and over. And tomorrow, that test would come again. Night had settled like a heavy blanket over the forest, the fire from the temporary encampment flickering weakly against the darkness. Tyler sat by the small flame, cleaning his shotgun, though he didn't bother to hide the tension gnawing at him. Even with Garrett's group, they weren't truly safe, just slightly less likely to die tonight. Every crack of a twig outside made him flinch. Jack leaned back against a tree, chewing on the stock of a spent bullet. I don't know how you keep your cool, he said, eyes on the shadows. Every little sound makes me want to shoot first and ask questions later. Tyler didn't answer. He'd learned the hard way that hesitation and overreaction both got people killed. You get used to it, he muttered. Sorta. Emma stayed close to Molly, who clutched her revolver so tightly her knuckles were white. You're doing fine, Emma whispered. Just stay focused. Ray, sitting on the opposite side of the fire, grunted. Focus ain't gonna mean squat if something sneaks up behind us. Everyone needs to stay sharp. No distractions. The fire crackled, a brief reprieve from the suffocating silence. But Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was coming. And he was right. A rustling in the underbrush grabbed their attention. Guns were raised in unison, every shadow treated like a threat. Then came a voice, soft, panicked. Help, please. Don't shoot. Tyler signaled for calm. Show yourself, he called. Slowly, a young man emerged, blood streaked across his face and arm dangling awkwardly. He stumbled toward the fire, clearly exhausted and terrified. Garrett stepped forward, eyeing the newcomer warily. Another one? This better not be trouble. Tyler moved closer, scanning the surrounding trees. We help him, then decide. No one gets left behind unless they try to hurt us. The man collapsed near the fire. Zombies, my town, they got everyone. I barely made it, he stammered. His words barely registered as Tyler examined him. He'd been bitten, but Tyler couldn't tell where, or how long ago. Emma froze. He's infected. We can't risk it. Tyler's jaw tightened. We don't have a choice. We need information. If he's close to turning, we keep him away from camp. But we get what we can. Molly's eyes went wide. He's gonna turn. Tyler put a hand on her shoulder. Maybe. But we deal with that when it happens. For now, he's human, and he knows stuff we need. The survivor coughed violently, clutching his arm. The town, north, there's a safe house. Supplies, weapons. Tyler's mind raced. A safe house could change everything, food, ammo, maybe even medicine. But he also knew what it meant, leading the group straight into danger. We can't go alone, he said. Everyone needs to be ready for a fight. Zombies, reapers, or worse, humans with nothing to lose. Jack muttered, so we risk it. Big deal. We've been risking it since day one. Emma shook her head. It's more than just risk. We don't know how bad it is, or if we can get out alive. Tyler scanned the faces around the fire. Molly looked terrified but determined. Ray's grip on his shotgun tightened. Jack was smirking, ready for the chaos. Emma's eyes were sharp, calculating. Garrett remained silent, sizing up Tyler and the plan. "Tomorrow," Tyler said finally, voice low but firm. "At first light, we head north. We get the supplies, then come back. No unnecessary risks. Everyone sticks together." The group fell silent, the weight of the plan settling over them. Every mind knew the truth, the world outside the fire was merciless. One misstep could be the end. Night dragged on. Every creak, every snap of a branch, every distant groan of the undead set nerves on edge. Molly finally drifted into restless sleep, still gripping her revolver. Tyler stayed awake, watching the fire, thinking about the choices ahead. Every decision meant life or death. Every plan had consequences. Before dawn, Tyler walked to the edge of the camp, looking at the horizon tinged with orange and pink. The forest seemed almost peaceful, but he knew it was an illusion. The dead weren't the only threat. Humans could be worse, more unpredictable, and far more ruthless. A low groan from the trees made him turn, shotgun raised. Another reaper? Or someone testing the camp? His eyes pierced the shadows, scanning for movement, for danger. He knew that by sunrise, they'd be forced to step back into a world that didn't care about courage, hope, or friendship. Tyler's grip tightened around the shotgun. The coming day would test them in ways they couldn't yet imagine. And deep down, he understood one unshakable truth: in this world, survival wasn't just about fighting the dead. It was about surviving the living too. The sun was just peeking over the horizon, spilling pale light across the forest as Tyler's group readied themselves. The air was thick with tension, each rustle of leaves and snap of a twig making hearts pound. Tyler checked his shotgun one last time, then nodded at the crew. "Stick together. Eyes sharp. No hero moves. We get in, grab what we need, and get out." Jack smirked, shouldering his rifle. Yeah. Simple enough, until it's not. Molly stayed close to Emma, revolver trembling in her hands, but she was determined. "I'm ready," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Garrett's group fell in behind them, weapons raised, eyes scanning. Even the young man they had rescued from the forest, the one bitten but still conscious, was being led in a protective circle, though Tyler kept him on the outside of the line, keeping the group safe while still getting intel. The path north was littered with debris, abandoned cars, and the occasional shadow of the undead moving in the distance. Tyler kept them quiet, stepping over roots and fallen branches, every nerve on edge. When they reached the outskirts of the town, the silence was deafening. Buildings were charred, streets cracked, and windows gaped open like empty eyes. It looked deserted, but Tyler knew better. Places like this always had hidden threats. "There," whispered Luke, pointing toward a fortified building with boarded windows. "That's probably it." "Safe house." Tyler nodded. "Stay low. Everyone, cover each other. We move fast." They entered cautiously, breaking through the weakened front door. Inside, the place was dark and musty, but it had been cleared recently. Shelves held canned food, bottled water, and stacks of ammunition. Medical kits were tucked in corners, and there were even a few weapons left behind. Tyler's group exchanged cautious smiles. Supplies meant survival, and survival meant hope, something they hadn't felt in a long time. Suddenly, a noise upstairs, a groaning, dragging sound, cut through the silence. Tyler motioned for silence, signaling the group to split. Jack and Emma took the left side, Tyler and Luke the right, while Garrett and Ray stayed near the back. Molly stayed close to Emma, gripping her revolver tightly. The noise grew louder. Tyler crept up the stairs, shotgun raised, and found a single zombie trapped between broken furniture and the wall. It hadn't seen them yet. Tyler gestured, and Jack and Emma moved in from the left. The zombie turned, moaning, but Tyler's shotgun blast ended it cleanly. "Clear," Tyler whispered, though his heart was still racing. They gathered the supplies, moving quickly but carefully, and started back toward the forest. But just as they reached the door, a loud crash sounded behind them. A group of reapers, scavengers who had learned to hunt both zombies and humans, had been waiting for them. "Looks like you found the good stuff," sneered the leader, a wiry man with a cruel grin. "Now hand it over." Tyler raised his shotgun. "Not a chance. We worked too hard for this." A chaotic battle erupted. Gunfire echoed, bullets ricocheting off walls, the smell of gunpowder mixing with dust and decay. Tyler and Jack moved in tandem, taking down reapers with precise shots. Emma swung her crowbar, knocking one back into a pile of crates. Molly fired with shaky hands but hit a critical shot that gave them an opening. Garrett and Ray fought fiercely, covering the retreat, but Tyler noticed the reaper leader moving toward the young man who had been rescued. Tyler's blood ran cold. He sprinted, tackling the man just as a bullet tore through the wall behind him. "Get down!" Tyler yelled. The chaos was overwhelming, but the combined force of the two groups allowed them to push the reapers back. Tyler grabbed the last box of supplies, signaling the retreat. They ran through the streets, adrenaline pumping, the reapers' shouts fading behind them. Once they reached the forest edge, everyone collapsed, gasping for breath, bruised and bleeding but alive. Tyler looked around at the crew: Molly, Jack, Emma, Luke, Ray, Garrett, and the rescued boy. Every face was dirty, scared, but alive. Tyler knelt beside Molly. "See? We made it. Again." She nodded, tears streaking her face. I can't believe we actually did it." Tyler looked at the horizon, where sunlight poured over the trees, painting the world gold. He knew it was fragile, temporary. But for now, hope was theirs. Supplies, safety, and the knowledge that together, they could survive this world, zombies, reapers, or whatever came next. "Tomorrow," Tyler said quietly, "we keep moving. We fight. We survive. And we keep each other alive. That's the only way we make it." The group sat in silence, letting the weight of survival sink in. The forest was quiet, but the day ahead would test them again. And Tyler knew, deep down, that despite the fear, despite the blood, despite everything, they were still the last survivors. For now, that was enough. The end.